Okay, back to the agenda. I want Debbie to read the motion.
I thought John was going to provide some
I'll have John
information
make the
first.
statement first, and then we'll go back and we'll read.
The statement I want to make and just simply indicate to the public who's here is that I had a lengthy conversation with Roger Aronson, who is the attorney for the Minnesota Principals Association. Mr. Aronson represents Mr. Carey, and based on various facts that he articulated to me, among those facts are that many board members sat in on the interviews with the various principals. Recommendation was virtually, if not totally unanimous for Mr. Carey, that he was hired, he was put to work by the school district. He quit his job as a principal for St. Louis County Schools, I believe at the Cherry School, if I'm not wrong.
That's
Correct.
And on that basis, he relied on what the board, in this board's vote that was done back in June, a unanimous vote, and the fact that he was put to work and those other facts, he relied on those things, and that he's been damaged now. If he does not get the approval of this board or affirmation with unanimity, he's out of work, and he's going to sue this district. And in my opinion, as a litigator, I believe he will prevail in that litigation, and the district could be open for substantial damages for, based on misrepresentation, the concept called legal estoppel or promissory estoppel, on which you rely on representations made by an entity, excuse me. And I believe he would prevail. Mr. Aronson states that if he is not allowed to be hired, if this does not go through as promised, that he will indeed sue the district. And of course, I'm not sure that any such liability, if there is one on the part of the district, would be covered by your insurance, it would come out of general fund dollars. Having said that, then, Mr. Young, my recommendation was, as we talked in a special session and or a closed session, so you can proceed accordingly.
Okay, Debbie, I'd like to read the original motion back.
Okay, on June 25th, a motion was made by Director Shamwab, supported by Director Collins, to approve the appointment of Jeff Carey to the position of Gilbert Campus Principal and a salary of $89,141, classification 2.
Now we have to have the two people that were not at that meeting vote. One was recused because we weren't sure of the statute. And then he walked out of the room, she wasn't here. And Mona was out sick. So at this time, I'd like to ask the people how they would like to vote.
You're asking for an affirmation of a unanimous vote.
The 5 individuals that voted that evening all voted yes.
They have three choices. They can either affirm, reject, or abstain.
Okay. So with that, Mary?
I abstain.
Mona?
I affirm.
Okay. That means that the motion passed. Abstaining goes with
Abstaining votes go with the majority.
Majority. So that's passed. Okay. Okay, moving on. 5.0, discussion on the Director of Buildings and Grounds Transportation position.
No,
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Great to see you.
As we get into the discussion on the Director of Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation, I did send an email to board members yesterday, and we did try to call you, Tom, and ask that you return the call, but I didn't hear from you. So I was visited by Mr. Cundy yesterday morning, who expressed an interest in being considered again for the position. The reason he gave me for withdrawing his name when he did is when we were in the interviews with the board members, we indicated that we would like him to start as soon as possible, which would be no later than mid-July. And he said that in his current position, and with the nature of that position, he had a number of facilities projects that were not yet underway that he was responsible for getting underway and for making sure that they were completed by the beginning of the school year. He did not feel that he could walk away from that position at the time that we asked him to. He found out that the position had not been filled. Those projects are now well underway, and he feels that he could walk away from his current employer. So he would like the board to consider him for the position once again.
Well, my question is, why didn't you bring this up during the interview? I mean,
I don't know.
you know,
That's a question you have to ask him. I couldn't tell you.
yeah, I mean, you know, to me, you apply for the job, and you say, no, I don't want it, and then you come back there and say, yeah, I'll take it. I mean, in a mining company, if you say, hey, I quit, and you got 23 years of seniority, and you walk off, you don't come back in and get your 23 years of seniority, you're done, you know. And I see, going on a recommendation that was made, you know, you had an alternate, we interviewed 2. I could see if we interviewed 3 and 1 dropped out, then you could interview the other 2 and make a decision between the 2. I think that would have been the ethical, fair way of doing it.
You know, I kind of admire Mr. Cundy for saying, I'm loyal to an employer and I can't leave him in the lurch.
But
Once you step away from something, if I were to apply for a teaching job and I interviewed for a teaching job and I was one of the top candidates, but then I said, you know, I'm not going to be able to do that because of some prior commitments. And once those commitments are met, I couldn't go back in and say, you know what, I'm available now. Any school board, any administrator would say, sorry.
I disagree. If you were the most qualified candidate.
And in the mines, if you do quit on good grounds, you can come back in, you get rehired, you work so long and you can bridge your years. I know guys have done it.
Right, but if you interview for a position at the mines and say I'm not
Well,
available and you go back
I'm
in,
just responding to what Tom's statement was.
This isn't a mine, and he didn't get hired and quit. He backed away for what I consider to be a legitimate reason.
well, I consider when you drop out that you're not interested. That's how I interpret it.
Well, I think that Tom is well qualified for what the position is.
I think we had 2 excellent qualified candidates.
That you probably have opposition to. I like Mark, I've known Mark for years. I think he's a great guy. There's a lot of things he doesn't know about the bidding process, doing the construction stuff, dealing with architects. That's stuff that you don't learn overnight,
But he has background that Tom didn't have,
such as.
busing. He knows the employees.
Sometimes that's
He
good,
knows the
sometimes it's
site.
not good. But now just leave it at that.
But also we have a training program here, and you have a 6-month training program with Mark, and then again, you're gonna hire, you're on a probationary period for another 6 months, so you're talking 1 year. The board or whoever decides at that time that you're not doing the job, well then, I say go out for replacement. If you've been
I
doing the
think your training program we talked about, is that a full-time training program you're speaking to? Half-day?
Yeah, for 6 months. And also you have architectural firms, you have electrical firms, you can't be an expert in, a jack of all trades and a master of none. So I'm sure that.
He's had 18 years' experience
Yeah.
dealing with this stuff.
Well, you still have.
Some of it.
Yeah.
Everything to do with buildings.
But
Everything.
not the busing and the
Not the
sand.
busing can be loaded too.
And the other candidate does not have scheduling experience with buses.
But he had the Excel experience, the computer experience that the other candidate did not.
I think Tom verbalized that he worked with Excel.
Not as a spreadsheet, to just put money in.
I don't.
to just put figures in.
Anybody else?
Well, it seems we have two choices on what we can do. I kind of like the idea with everything that's happened and gone on, that we re-interview the two candidates and then make a decision. Or based on what interviews we have had and with what has gone on since then, we make a motion to hire one or the other tonight.
No, we can't.
You can't do that, that's
Or
not a
at the
board
next-
agenda.
At the next meeting then with.
You
all-
could have the next meeting, but
Either re-interview prior to the next meeting or just take action at the next meeting. They're the two things I see, two choices. I would be comfortable with re-interviewing. I think there's several of us have some additional questions
Yes.
that have come up that we would like to ask of the two candidates. And if they'd be willing to re-interview, I think that would be the way to go.
Are we gonna interview the two candidates that were originally?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, what bothers me about it is, you get a recommendation on two candidates, now you come up, you're saying, hey, one isn't qualified, you know, then I think you should review the whole person, go up and get the most qualified out of all the interviews.
You mean re-advertise?
Oh, yeah. Or redo, you have copies of, how you, when you interview, you go on a scale like 1 to 10, when you rate a person that you're interviewing, you rate them?
we just like each individually ranked them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
And then we looked at who had the top rankings, and those were the two that were ranked 1 and 2.
Well, the two had the top rating that we interviewed. Well, then, we're back to the interviews. We're saying, no, he's not interviewed, after you say it is. You recommend
Well-
them, come back and say, no,
What we said is we would bring to the board the top 2 that were identified by the original interview committee for the board to interview. In our opinion, the board could have said, we don't think either one of those are qualified, and directed administration to go out and repost for that position. We just brought to you the top 2 from our interview committee. We didn't say that they were fully qualified. We just said, here's the top 2 for you to interview to see what you have in terms of a recommendation. And when I walked away from there was no recommendation for me. Nobody indicated that either one of them wasn't a candidate that they felt comfortable in selecting. That's how I walked away from there. I didn't know what direction, I put it on the next agenda without any idea as to how that vote would go. Because you were not in consensus at all.
Well,
And you still aren't in consensus.
I feel like we have done a terrible disservice to the remaining candidate. If you interview 2 people and one person backs out, it would be the ethical thing to take the other candidate. If you're bringing in your 2 top candidates to be interviewed, this is the recommendation that the interview committee brought forward to the board. And one of them backs out, the other one ethically should be offered the position. And I think we've done a terrible disservice. We've made him wait for a month and a half to hear anything. Mark Skurians, I'm sure, would really like to retire. We've done him a disservice by making him wait around.
No, his retirement date is January 1st, and he
Right, but
intends
he
to
was-
retire on that date.
Sure, but he was going to go to half-time.
He is at halftime.
He is a half.
He is right now.
It was gonna be half-time till the first of the year. then
He
it was
is at
gonna be
halftime.
No time. But I don't think we as a board can give any position by default. Just because 2 candidates were presented to us for a position and one withdraws, that does not mean that the remaining candidate is automatically hired. It is up to the board to take action to hire that person. It doesn't happen by default. Okay?
I didn't say default, I said ethically.
Ethically, well, then ethically, we do not have an obligation to hire that person unless we choose to. We do not have to do it ethically or by default or whatever term you want to use. It's a board decision to hire an individual. It doesn't happen by default.
One question that comes to my mind, and I, due to my health, I was unable to sit in on the interviews or the vote, or as it was pulled from the agenda that night anyway, but we've always filled that position from within. You can go back several decades and find that that position has always been filled from within. So my presumption would be that the people who held the highest position always delegated enough work or shared enough of what they did with other employees that someone else was qualified to step in should they leave. No one ever felt they were so indispensable that they had to do it alone. So what's different now that we don't have someone currently on staff that the other, and I'm comfortable with him, but that the other board members may not be comfortable, that he's learned enough from his predecessor that he could step in and do the job. So does any of the fault, and it's a question, fall on the current director for not having shared more and not been more open and not delegated more? You know, maybe that's something that we need to look at as we go forward, that no one should operate in a vacuum where they don't share that data with their other workers. Everybody can be replaced, and we should be able to replace them from someone within.
As long as they're qualified, I agree.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. Some of those qualifications happen through the course of doing the work.
And I would just like to have the ability to re-interview, because I'm not sure, after looking back at my notes, that if there would have only been one candidate on the table, if I would have voted for him. And I've known Mark for years. I've got nothing against Mark. I'm just worried, I don't want to put him in a position where if he doesn't have all the tools to deal with, he's going to fail, and I do not want to do that to him. That would be more of a disservice than just to hire him just because he's the only one there.
But if he wasn't one that the interview committee felt was qualified, they wouldn't have brought him forward.
We just brought forward the top two candidates.
Right, so
We
the
didn't
top
say
two
anything
qualified
about-
candidates.
No, the top two. We brought them to you for your interview, for you to decide if they have the qualifications you wanted as a board to hire them.
If we did that, we would not be doing the hiring. If we followed that procedure, we would be rubber stamping what that interview committee presented to us. We would not be taking effective, positive action to hire.
But
Again,
isn't that
I'm
what
going
we
back to
do for most of the
defaulting.
things? The administration recommends, here, vote on it.
But we haven't done that for some of the key positions we hire for. We kind of do an initial screening. We did the same thing for the principal. We initially screened the candidates and we brought forward to you the top two that were identified by the committee for your interview to see if you felt that they were qualified for the positions.
I feel like this is just a big waste of everybody's time.
Well, I would like,
Tom's, Mark's,
you know, I would like to
ours.
say too that I believe you hire administration, myself and the principals, Mark Scurian's people in supervisory roles to do that job, to do the hiring. And that we should feel comfortable just bringing you the final recommendation, but that was not the procedure set in place. It was indicated the board wanted to interview the top two candidates for the principals and the top two candidates for this position. So we followed the board's direction, bringing you the top two candidates identified by the initial interview committee. And it was up to you to identify the candidate you felt most comfortable recommending for that position. And as I said, when I walked out of there, when I walked out of the principal one, it was very clear who you were recommending. You told me to call that individual and offer that individual the job. When I walked, I'm talking about the principal.
Oh,
The principal. You identified who you wanted for that. When we walked away from the other one, you couldn't. You said you needed more time to reflect on it. You gave me, I didn't call either Mark or Tom because you didn't give me any direction.
well, I take it when you come up with two candidates that you're interviewing the top two and it's your consensus that these are the individuals that are the top of the line of the interview. What we were saying here also, that's why I promote him within, and also, he's gonna be in a training program. Can't we give him a chance to prove something? We just gotta, one drops out, and then he comes back in again, and the other guy go, hey, no, you say he's not trainable?
I'm not saying that about Mark.
Well, he's
And I
on
know that-
probation. He's on probation, and if you can't get it, then it's up to the board to go back out again. That's the way I feel.
And what if we have to do that? How are we gonna handle it if Mark is put in that position? If it doesn't work out, how are you gonna handle that?
How would we handle it if the same thing happened with the other candidate?
Yeah.
Same way we would for anybody else if they walked out, if they couldn't handle
I
it.
couldn't do that to somebody, I know.
You know what,
You might be able to, I can't.
if I took names off of resumes and just looked at qualifications, one person had experience in many, many, many of the different things we're looking for, had the certifications we're looking for, with the exception of the bus driving, which we've hired many people who don't have that piece, and this person isn't actually going to routinely drive a bus. But one person had many certifications and many years of experience doing those duties. The other person had a bus driving license.
And has worked in several positions in this district.
Right, but has not had a supervisory position, and we are hiring for a supervisory position.
He has supervisory experience,
With the Boy Scouts,
union president,
which he no longer is.
sure. But that is still supervisory experience. I was an aquatic director. That's supervisor, no longer a supervisor, but I have that experience.
What does the union president supervise?
I can't even get into this conversation with you.
I think that's a simple, fair question, Beth. What does the union president supervise?
Okay. Take that off, then we have to take it off with the other candidates, because he used that as supervisory experience as well.
He has current supervisory experience, so take it off, that's fine. I'm not gonna, I don't want to argue with you. I just want to say, take names off, look at resumes, and look at qualifications.
Okay, if we want to look at qualifications, then I think that we need to look at every single piece of paper that was submitted with that person's application. Because I know that not the whole part of that application package was not delivered to the board members.
I also think it would behoove us to take a look at the job description and compare qualifications to duties on the job description. So yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think we should do that.
Did our prior have all these qualifications on the job description?
When Mark Surians was hired, did he tick every single box that was requested of him?
I think we'd be amazingly fortunate if we found somebody who ticked every single
You're
box.
absolutely right, Mary. Thank you very much.
But I think we also need to look at the person who ticks the most boxes, and you and I are going to have a different opinion about
Right,
that.
because one candidate ticks some of the boxes, the other candidate ticks those ones that were missing. And if we could combine them, we'd have a perfect candidate, but we can't. So we have an employee that already works here. We look at promoting within. Mrs. Hildy, teacher, was the dean of students, became a principal. Now she's a superintendent. Mark Surians started in maintenance. Now he's supervisor. We look at Danette, counselor. Now she's a principal. We are promoting our own within. It's creating ownership within our organization. Because they've been at the bottom, it builds them up.
I don't disagree with promoting from within, Beth, but I was a part of the hiring of each of those people you named. And each time that I voted in the affirmative for one of those people, I believed they were the most qualified candidate. each time.
And I believe that the one that we are promoting from.
Right, and you and I disagree.
Absolutely.
There we are.
Anyone else?
And I think of the morale that it would boost around here. And let's face it, as a former employee, sometimes employees are not treated so well. And if we can promote within, we're helping to boost that morale.
Right, there's an incentive for the other employees within the
To
district.
work hard,
To work
to
hard.
attain
Right.
some level of leadership, to take pride in ownership in the organization.
During the interviews, I didn't have any problem with either one of them. But we never did come up to a vote on it. As far as I was concerned, I basically asked the same candidate the same question.
Well, you have to ask your candidates the same question,
Well,
otherwise it
right,
wouldn't be
that's-
fair.
No.
And
So during the interview, you know, as far as I was concerned, you know,
Anyone else? Yeah?
The thing that, I do believe that Tom is more qualified than Mark in that, in some respects, like what Mary's, you know, because I did compare one for one there with the, you know, the job description. But I'm now wondering, in my mind, will Tom back out again before he takes it?
Will something better come along that
Yeah.
catches his eye?
then let it, you know.
And then a year from now, he takes off because of something else. Mark has been here X amount of
12
years,
12 years.
12, you know, couldn't remember, but what's the chances? Of course, he could do the same too. He could become supervisor a year or two from now, and have a better job opportunity with the county. It could still work both ways, but
The chances of that happening are far slimmer.
Why?
when Tom retires.
Because he's already been a longtime employee here.
What if he wants to move up to a job that's got more money and better if he's got the qualifications, why not?
Why not?
We can't speak for him. And
Right.
neither one of us should be doing it.
I am supporting what Leon is
No,
speaking to.
It's, yeah, pretty much I've just taken Tom a little bit down from where he held before. But, you know, he's very well qualified, I'm not gonna deny that. But I'm just concerned if he's looking around elsewhere too. You know,
That's a good question.
you know, it may not be that day he's looking, it could happen,
And he
In
does live in our
February.
district also.
you know, he may look at Virginia, or he may look at Wasabi East, or Mount Maryville, you know, in February or March. I don't think Mark will, hopefully,
Can I answer?
please. But it's just that for me, right now, at this moment, I'm trusting Mark a little bit more for staying.
Mark hasn't removed his name in the 6 weeks, and I can't even begin to imagine the turmoil that he
that
has
he's going
felt
through. Yes.
in this last 6 weeks. Not knowing. I've waited a week to hear on a job, and that was rough. 6 weeks?
I feel bad for the employees who actually believed all along that there was hope, that there was something to look forward to, that someone amongst their ranks would get a promotion as things change. You know, and that's got nothing to do with addressing the individual's qualifications or specifics regarding them. I mean, just from the heart, how do you look at a group of employees and tell them, you're stuck where you are till the day you retire, there's no hope for promotion, there's no hope for improvement in your station? This is what we think. We think that our employees, we've run out of employees who qualify to do this. And we can't hire from within. I think that's heartbreaking. I think it's unfortunate if that's the case, and I don't believe that it is.
And how do you attract those quality employees if they know I will never be able to move up? Because they're always going to hire from outside. But if I can see that, oh, this person moved up, oh, they moved this person up, well, maybe there's a chance for me.
What does the board want to do? We have to do something, we can't sit here all night and argue. What do you want to do?
No,
You want to re-interview, you don't want to re-interview?
Can we not characterize it as arguing? I hope
Okay,
none of this
discussion.
was. Well, I would hope that none of it was taken as argumentative. I think it's,
Okay, we can sit here and discuss this all night. Is that better? I agree. Wrong word, sorry. But we have to do something. We have to make a decision to move this forward somewhere. Either way, it's gonna have to be moved forward.
I would still like to re-interview. I think, like I said earlier, there's a lot of questions that have come up from several of us, maybe all of us. And I think re-interviewing the two candidates and reasonable as soon as we can would be the right way to go. We get some of our questions answered.
Would it be possible for us as board members to submit questions to you? that we
I think
might
that
have?
you should create your own questions.
Yeah,
and
I guess
I don't
that's
think
what
you
I-
should submit them to me. I think you
Okay.
should just create your own to be asked.
Okay, yeah.
I mean,
Last time we had a list of
Yep,
questions from
yep.
you where,
I think you
But we were
said
able
you've
to
come
ask
up.
questions.
Right.
Yeah, and you were able to
Right.
ask your own.
Maybe
Right.
several of us did.
yeah.
But I think if you've mentioned that you have additional questions that have come up that you want to ask, put those in writing and present those if you decide to interview again.
Did we interview, or did the administration interview 6 or was it 8? 6 or
I
8?
think it was 6
Well, is it out of
or
the
7.
spectrum?
I thought it was 8.
I'd have to go back and look at the list.
Is that out of the question that the board cannot look at these resumes?
You can look at all of them if you want copies. I can make you copies and send them all to
And,
you. And if you want to interview some of the others, that's fine.
I think this is the appropriate way to go, wouldn't it?
Whatever the board wants
So
to
you're
do.
gonna go
I'm willing to
for,
go anything right now.
But then I think
Why
I
would
have
would,
to
we
do
do that,
something.
Tom?
then I would think that you would need to meet again to, as a board, decide who you were going to interview, because I don't think you want to interview all 7 or 8.
what bothers me is when you get 2 candidates up, I assume that the interviewing process was gone through. And now, one backs out, now we're coming up and saying we gotta re-interview again. You know, re-question I don't believe in that. It's questioning your integrity for one thing. It's questioning my integrity, I feel that. Hey, I asked questions, I was comfortable with either one, when it came up to a vote, I could have voted either way, correct? Yeah.
The way you, I mean, I don't know what your thoughts were.
I mean, based on what I did with the 2 interviewing, I mean, that was my intent to make a determination on who to hire, and I one backs down. And you say you're gonna quit again?
I have a question. Polly Sorcon, why was it pulled from the agenda that night of the meeting?
Because I felt the board had to have an opportunity to discuss it, and I thought it was best discussed at a personnel committee meeting. And that was the intent for tonight, but when we had another item to discuss, I decided just to have a special board meeting and have it as a topic for discussion.
Couldn't the board have discussed it that night, though? It was an agenda item.
It happened so quickly that, I mean, it was an hour before the meeting, hour and a half before the meeting that it was pulled.
Could I ask why then it's been 6 weeks until this has come up
I
again?
tried to arrange a personnel committee meeting, but because of conflicts and board member schedules, we could not get the board together to discuss it.
Could I ask then if one candidate was possibly
No.
outstanding, why did you bring 2 to the board instead of just recommending 1 person?
I think she's answered all your questions.
I don't think she's answered that question.
She earlier said her direction was to bring 2 candidates to the board. That's what she did. 2 candidates, the 2 top candidates that they had. That's exactly what she did. The administration has done what the board has asked of them in this process. When that item was pulled from the agenda, any board member could have asked why at the meeting, and they didn't. Okay? Everybody let it go. Figuring there was a good reason, and I think there was. Maybe we should have handled it sooner. A lot of time has gone on, and we have tried. We've tried to set up committee meetings, haven't been able. We're now at a point where we need to do something.
I wasn't aware of that meeting, Mark, that it was pulled from the.
I wasn't either until it was pulled. None of us were.
Well,
Right.
Keith was, I
I did.
called Keith to discuss
Called me,
the issue with
I
him
told her I
and
think
asked
we
if
should
he
pull
thought
it.
it was appropriate to pull it, and the board chair felt it
I tried to get
was.
to everybody during, just before the meeting or after, and I didn't have time to get to people on this side. And I apologize for that. I said that afterwards. But I didn't think it was appropriate to bring it up when you only have 1 candidate. What if you don't vote for him? What does that tell him? I want to have a chance to interview everyone.
Well, right now, we only have 1 candidate. We haven't officially said, well, let's accept Tom back, have we?
No,
Okay.
that's the decision you have to make, if you want to re-interview or not.
Or just hire the remaining candidate.
Or vote on the person who's there.
Correct.
That doesn't mean it's an automatic hire.
But we cannot vote tonight.
We
No.
cannot vote like that.
It's only discussion. But you
I-
can provide administration with some direction as to how you want to proceed.
I think it shows a person's character when they pull out of the running for a position. But then once their commitments, their prior commitments have been met, oh, my things are done, here I am.
Yes,
I
your
think it shows a
integrity to his-
flaw
to his
in
former
character.
district.
Loyalty to an
Loyalty.
employer after 18 years.
Great.
Where's his loyalty?
But if he's applying for a new job, don't you want to show that you are ready and willing and able? And he said he couldn't do that, which
At that time.
that's at that time. And now, by golly, his commitments have been met because we couldn't get together. Lucky him.
What are you saying?
What I'm saying is, to me, and this is my opinion only, it almost feels like there's some underhandedness, under the table dealings going on. And again, my
Yes,
opinion, I'm
your
not
opin-
certain
Your
of
opinions
that.
have been flying lately and have caused a lot of concerns in the district also.
I am entitled to my own opinion.
That's right, you are.
And I can voice them.
If there was nothing, I can show you the email I got Monday night at 3:30 from Mr. Cundy stating that he had just heard that the position was still open and he would like to speak to me on Tuesday morning. That I can show you. I think it is a little disconcerting that you question the integrity of administration without any evidence to support that.
I just
And I'm
want
I'm
total
going to say that.
transparency.
I am totally transparent. You can see that email. He spoke to Mary on Monday, that's what it indicates. Mary indicated the position was open. He contacted me wondering if he could come and see me. I have an open door. Anyone who wants to come and see me is free to do so.
Well,
he
and now I know where it
approached me,
came
Beth.
from.
He approached me. He said he had heard on the streets the position wasn't filled. He came and asked me if that was true. I said the position has not been filled.
It's coming together now.
what do you want to do with this? I'm all for interviewing, again, whether it's 2 people, 6 people, 20 people, I don't care. We have to do something. I'm all for interviewing the 2 people that were on there before.
I agree.
I think we should interview everybody. That's just my opinion. I was interviewed.
Mhm.
Brad was interviewed, correct?
Yep, I was interviewed.
Brad was interviewed.
Our
Dennis Armstrong was interviewed.
our instruction to administration prior to those, any interviews, was to bring forward the top 2
Top 2.
candidates
That were interviewed.
that were
And we
interviewed.
did.
Change your mind now.
Keith, may I make?
Why didn't the whole board interview everybody?
We've always done it like that.
I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Can I make a
Yeah.
point?
Yeah.
It doesn't serve me well to approach another interview process. As Tom and Mary pointed out, I have things to learn from Mark Skrians, and his time with the district is limited, and this extending the hiring process is shortening that for me. So in a sense, by having another re-interview, it's lessening my chances of actually getting a
I realize that,
position.
Mark.
And the loyalty that you just referred to, I'm here, Keith.
I know.
I'm here, I'm ready to do the
Your
job.
loyalty is not an issue with me.
And this isn't
Or
about
you, it's not personally
Oh,
one.
it's you're pointing out the plaudits of having Tom be such a loyal guy for his district. I am that guy for your district. It's our district. I'm ready to do the work.
Debbie,
Mm-hmm.
by prolonging this, Mark being only part-time, is he able to get all of the scheduling and everything ready for
Whatever he
school
can do,
before?
whatever the bus scheduling is taken care of,
Okay.
yes. But on the days that he will not be available, I will be assuming some of his responsibilities.
Whether you want to or not.
It's my role.
And if we interview everybody, that's gonna take longer. That's why I thought it'd be better just for the 2.
And I'm not sure that some of those people would accept an interview. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know why they're here.
And that
We're gonna ask.
reverses the process we set up in the first place.
So we would need a motion to interview all of these people again.
Well, I don't know
It's
what
not really
you're
a,
looking for.
I think we have, it's either by consensus or we're gonna have to vote on it, because right now it's, I don't think you're gonna get a consensus. I can guarantee you won't,
On what to
Just-
do next?
just from the discussion, yeah.
I'd like to see us re-interview the top 2 people.
And I don't have a problem with re-interviewing.
How many?
2, top 2, that's what we
I
initially
I
said.
am agreeable to re-interviewing the top 2.
I have a problem with that. I feel, once you, if I would, I guess it would be if I was in the military, if I went through promotion, I go through promotion, I go through boards to get promoted. And basically that board did the same thing that this board does. And that board would either recommend me or not for promotion. And in the warrant officer branch, there were 5 steps and it's every 3 years. Now, I feel if the board, I apply for this, I'm up for the promotion, and then I refuse it, well, then I'm out. You bring the next guy up.
But Tom,
Yeah.
nobody has ever offered this position. The board never reached a consensus to say you're up for this.
Yeah, well, I feel the board never voted on it. So you
Right,
have
so I
one
don't see
candidate,
how your
you have one
analogy
candidate
fits.
left out of two, that's right, that I feel are the top two that we interviewed, drops out. That's, promote within the ranks and give the guy a chance. That's my personal opinion. There's gonna be a training program. He's got, I don't know how long was Mark in a training program? Prior to him?
2 days.
Huh?
2 days.
2 days? Well,
2 days and
then-
former
well,
person
aren't
left.
we saying that?
Yeah.
We're just pulling the rug out from underneath the feet?
Well, can I say something on that one?
Yes.
With Fratadrava,
I'll recognize you, you're not the chair, Joe. Go ahead.
with that being said, yes, you know, Mark had 18 years afternoon and shift experience. He also had 2 years day shift experience that Mark is doing now in the pools. And he also did 2 years as a carpenter before he got the boss's job. But he also got sent to school to do the computers when we were switching over, because back in the old day, there wasn't the computers. So then he went to learn this position, okay? And Debbie's secretary, or Mike Lang's secretary, did most of the busing and coordinating, where we bought a computer program from Mark to do this. So things were a lot different, but yes, there was some training for Mr. Skurians.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so you can't, you know, cut anybody down for not having the training. It's a learning process, and it'll be a learning process. If he stays 20 more years for this board, it'll be a learning process every day of his life.
Yeah, it will be, I agree.
Very good point.
If we choose to re-interview again, will all of the documents that were submitted in the application?
You can have the full application.
Okay. Because I know that there were some things that both candidates were very proud of that did not make it into what the board saw. And perhaps that would be a motivating factor for us to choose one.
One?
I have no problems with interviewing them.
Okay.
And by them, excuse me, I mean the two top
two?
candidates.
Okay. So everyone's in agreement except for Tom on the top two? So, do we agree with top two?
I have one more question
Sure.
before you make the total interview thing process here. Mary brought up that the board is going to bring up your own questions, or each individual questions. For each individual person, are they going to be the same questions?
I think they have to be the same
I would think so,
questions to
but
me.
you know,
Yeah.
we have to figure out exactly what question, you know, where that's headed, so.
What happened the last time is the board received a pre-printed list of questions, and we as board members had an opportunity at the end.
I got the
To
first
ask
interview, Mary. I
questions.
know how this works.
Yeah,
I know very well how it
yeah,
works.
and I just am saying, I would like to have an opportunity as
It's-
a board member to generate.
And speaking for myself, with the most experience in this district in all aspects, I was disappointed in the interview process.
So, do you want to, Debbie, do we need to vote on this, or, because it's
No,
not, it's just
you're in consensus that you want to
consensus.
interview
6-1.
the same
We
two
should do the
candidates.
same two.
You're gonna go with the same two?
Yes.
I mean, I think Tom was the only one who didn't agree with that process, is that correct? or-
What did interview three, the top three? Or, like I said, if you don't thought, I don't,
I think we need to keep it,
Top two. And I would
if
think
we're
we
going to
wanted,
interview.
We would like to do this as soon as we can, as soon as everybody can get together, right? I don't know if we can do it by next Tuesday, but certainly our second meeting in August, hopefully we would be able to do it by then.
Well, we're all around on Monday for those
Meetings.
interviews for
Facilities,
facilities.
Beth is unable to meet.
I can in the evening, I can't at all during the day.
Okay.
so we could have the news on Monday evening? Yeah.
Is that a second?
board members be there on the 12th
5
in the
o'clock,
evening?
around 5 or so, or,
If we could do it a little later
Later.
than 5 o'clock,
okay.
6,
or even 5.
5:30? Okay. Is it okay with everyone?
That's the 12th at 5:30.
Yes. So you're interviewing the top 2 candidates? I believe they were like an hour and a half,
No, they were, what, 45 minutes?
45, okay, if you give them an hour.
Yeah, we had 45-minute interview and
Okay.
then a little break.
Okay. Okay. So we're adjourned. Okay.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Support.
Okay. Thank you.